Good morning. I will now call to order the July 21st meeting of the Education Professional Standards Board Waiver Committee. I am joined this morning by my fellow committee members, Corinne Murphy and Lisa Brzezinski. We have 6 waivers to review and formulate in a recommendation to present to the full board. All waivers will be presented by Todd Davis.
Good morning. Please bear with me. So we'll kick off waiver A's in regards to 16KAR 3090. It's a request to allow instructional and leadership classroom experiences to count as a school counselor to meet the 3-year teaching experience requirement for an issuance of a statement of eligibility for principal. It's in regards to Miss Katrina Allen Day. And these materials can be found in pages 34 through 59 in your board materials. Ms. Day is a certified school counselor in Kentucky and Indiana, and she's been employed in JCPS as a school counselor since 2008. However, she was employed through New Albany Floyd County Schools in Indiana prior to moving to Kentucky. Ms. Day was admitted to a WKU's principal certification program based on her 11 years of counseling experience in Indiana at that time. In the state, since that state doesn't require school counselors to teach lessons in a classroom environment in addition to other school counseling duties. Ms. Day completed the WKU program in 2018 and recently passed the SLLA required for the Kentucky eligibility. Her university has made the recommendation for the SOE, and she has provided extensive documentation on her classroom instructional experiences. And Ms. Day is requesting the board approve this request to accept her instructional experiences to count as a school counselor to count for that 3-year requirement.
And just for reference, you all have seen these waiver requests before, typically with some out-of-state candidates as well. And you have approved them when you have found that they did have actual classroom experience.
I'm assuming I have to recuse myself from this conversation.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm not jumping in.
I was like, usually someone would have made a motion by now.
It's just not going to be me. I'm not going to start it.
Okay. I mean, with all
This
the
is my
letters of
first time on here.
recommendation.
I don't even know how it runs, so I'm brand new.
I'm
So just make a
sorry.
motion.
So, okay. So with all, if you think that you agree that we should approve the waiver, then just make a motion and then someone will second the motion, which would have to be me at this case. Or if you think that not, then say no and then explain why, and then we'll talk about it and we'll decide what we think. I personally, with all the letters of recommendation, the 4.0 and everything else, I'm okay with approving her waiver. But I don't know what everyone else thinks. So I make a motion that we approve the waiver for Katrina Day.
Okay, I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? All righty, so our next waiver B, will also be presented by Mr. Davis.
This is in waiver B's in regards to 16KAR 4030, and the next several items will be related to this same regulation. But it's requesting a waiver for the equivalent requirement of certification from an out-of-state prepared educator. It's in regards to Darren Blake Gamble. And these items are located on 60 through 63 in your materials. Mr. Gamble is a current educator in Johnson County Schools who is certified in special education, LBD. Johnson County's had a need for a driver's ed teacher for some time, and no one in the school district holds that endorsement. Additionally, there are no approved programs that still operate in Kentucky offering this endorsement program. Mr. Gamble completed his online program through Grandview University in Iowa, which consisted of 9 graduate hours and the program results in an endorsement in Iowa for driver's education. It is also a regionally and nationally accredited IHE and is accredited through our NC Sarah group as well. Mr. Gamble and Mr. Johnson County are requesting the board waive the requirement of possessing the equivalent certification in Iowa to allow him to teach or obtain the driver's ed endorsement here in Kentucky.
And I will note for you as well with the waivers of 16 KAR 4030, that's the next few of these are for that same regulation. And the board has seen those in regards to people that have completed out-of-state programs, but did not possess that certificate in the other state because they are just wishing to be certified in Kentucky. So typically, as long as the individual has completed a program and met all of the requirements other than actually obtaining the certificate in that other state, and then met the Kentucky requirements for issuance, the board has been approving that. This is also one of those regulations that is on our list to review and update. So we are looking at bringing back to the board this fall an update that would make these waiver requests unnecessary. And it would allow for these individuals that have met those requirements to be issued the certificate.
Awesome. I move to approve the waiver.
Second.
All righty, so we will recommend approval for waiver B, Darren Gamble, and we're moving on. Are there any further discussion? I'm sorry. So we're moving on, and Mr. Davis will present the summary for waiver C, which starts on page 64.
Waiver C is in regards to 16 KAR 4030 as well, and is related to Austin Riddle. Ashland Independent Schools is looking for to employ a recent graduate, Austin Riddle. He is graduated from an institution. Let's see, like I copied and pasted the wrong thing here. Sorry.
Ohio University.
Yes, he attended Ohio University. Sorry. That was the last one. Uh-oh.
And I believe with Mr. Riddle, he didn't pursue the Ohio requirements because he did intend to come back to Kentucky. He has taken and passed the Kentucky praxis for middle school social studies. It looks like his program was for middle social studies and science, but he is currently eligible for the middle school social studies certificate in Kentucky. And so he and Ashland Independent are asking that you approve this waiver to issue him that certificate.
Thanks, Cassie. Sorry, I'm a little frantic this morning. So
Okay, I got the multiple screens going, so just jump in.
yes. As Cassie said, he has passed the Kentucky praxis for middle school social studies, and so Ashland and he are requesting again the equivalent certification be held in this instance. Or not be held. Sorry.
So he's met all of the requirements for issuance of the Kentucky license?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve it.
A second. Any further discussion? All righty, so whoever's there for me, who's speaking for me? I'm sorry, since I won't be there, we'll make a motion to that we recommended approval of waiver C. On to waiver D, which is starts on page 75, which is also presented by Mr. Davis.
And waiver D is also 16 KR 4030 and is related to Melody Ann Wallace. Ms. Wallace received her initial teaching degree in Florida from Florida Gulf Coast University. She'd been relocated to Kentucky and through Indiana 11 years ago, and holds elementary certification as well as middle school English and communications. Ms. Wallace sought to obtain a second master's degree for a rank 1 status in the area she felt would best benefit her students, and completed an online master's of social work program at the University of Central Florida online. She also completed 1,000 hours of required supervision in her Kentucky school to satisfy the requirements of the program in Florida. She completed the program in August of 22, fulfilling the requirements for Florida school social worker. The University of Central Florida and Florida Department of Education each wrote a letter supporting her approval. However, they cannot issue the certification in Florida due to the fact that she does not have a position in the state of Florida. So they cannot issue the certificate due to that. So she is requesting the requirement of holding the equivalent certificate to obtain the social work degree or certification here in Kentucky for a rank change.
And I apologize, it's page 67. I misspoke. Does anyone have a motion on waiver D, Ms. Wallace? Or any discussion? Well, I make a motion that we approve waiver D and allow her Florida information to count here in Kentucky, since she's met all the requirements for Florida except residency and working there.
I'll second.
I'm in favor. I was just muted, so, I tried to help. My worst enemy, my own worst enemy.
For some reason, it feels like Monday, so I apologize.
Fair enough. I get it.
I started work in the middle of the week, and I'm just so off.
I don't know who keeps scheduling these on Fridays for you all, but we'll talk to them.
We're dedicated, that's for sure, or try to be. So the next waiver is waiver E, and this one begins on page 75 and will also be presented by Mr. Davis.
Waiver is also in regards to 4030, for 4080 for the out-of-state recency requirements for Mr. Kyle Graves in Simpson County. And Simpson County Schools has employed Mr. Graves through the 22-23 school year as a band teacher. He completed an educator certification program in Tennessee in 2016. He holds the professional certification in the state of Tennessee, but he has not completed any graduate credit in the last 5 years, and has worked as a fully certified teacher in Tennessee continuously through 2016, or from 2016 through 22, at which time he moved to Kentucky and began to work for Simpson County. Mr. Graves and Simpson County are requesting that the out-of-state recency requirement of the 6 graduate hours be waived so that he can apply for the 5-year renewal without completing additional graduate coursework.
I had a question on this one because I could not remember if this person was a Kentucky resident and had worked for 5 years, what would we say without the graduate hours? Cassie.
So with this one and with these waivers, you have recognized that if they have been continuously employed, the board has been approving the request to waive the additional hours.
Do we approve it for the full 5-year renewal, or do we can we approve it for like a 1 year?
So he has already been issued the 1 year.
Okay.
And after the 1 year, it was requiring the 5 years, the 6 hours of credit. So he's now asking to be issued that 5 years without having the additional 6 hours of credit. So
and
again,
that's I'm sorry.
I was going to say, what the board has been looking at when you've seen these the last, I believe, 2 meetings is whether or not they have had a break in service. And so when you have had those educators that have been out of the classroom for a period of time and are coming back to teaching, you have still been requiring that they meet recency. because in a similar manner, most Kentucky applicants would need that 6 hours for reissuance of the certificate. However, if they have had continuous service and been in the classroom, you have been waiving this.
Okay, because I'm just trying to make sure we're not treating out-of-state folks better than in-state folks.
Yep.
So does anyone have a motion for waiver E? Based on precedent, I
Want to make a motion because I'm a little conflicted. I realize we have precedents and I probably was participatory in some of that precedents. I guess I don't fully understand if a year ago he was issued the provisional and told that he needed to do 6 credit hours in order to do the 5-year. We've really been saying, hey, people, if you didn't do that, even though we told you to do it a year ago, we're going to approve you.
Yes, and previously, I mean, I remember some of these waivers coming before years back, like when we were at Airport Road, and it may have been when we first moved over here as well. Those were denied. They were said, no, you have to have this 6 hours. However, within the, it may have actually started in December, because I know we had some coming from our superintendent, that the board has been approving him if there was this continuous service. And again, I think part of that was because of the issues for especially our border districts, where they are, you have somebody that cannot stay in Kentucky unless they have an additional 6 hours, but they could go back to Tennessee and be fine. And the same thing will happen with the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. We're not there yet, but the individual would be able to be issued the Kentucky certificate based solely on having the valid certificate from another member state.
But when they get issued that, in that instance, and they are issued that, then once they have that Kentucky certificate, aren't they expected to meet all of the Kentucky standards from that point forward?
Yes, which would be they would have to meet the standards for reissuance, same as anybody else, which this individual would have to do if you approved his 5-year, his waiver request today for the 5-year certificate. He would still, to be able to renew that, have to meet the requirements of 3 years of teaching experience within that 5 years, or the 6 hours.
So he'll be held to that.
Yeah. It's the same. Any certificate that is going to be issued, any professional certificate for that 5-year period, is going to have the same requirements for renewal or reissuance.
Okay. It is ironic that, the last time I looked, Tennessee had not indicated they were going to sign up for the Interstate Compact.
They have not yet. Typically with the compact, or my understanding with other compacts, is that it can take up to 2 years to get enough member states to even be operational. This one moved quicker than a lot, but it still requires legislative approval from all of the states. So we will see some additional trickle in.
Well, I guess I make the motion to approve the waiver, given that we've done it before.
Is there a second? All right, Lisa, I'll second.
I'm not going to second that. I would be, I feel like giving the 1-year provisional or 1-year extension to do that hours, like we instructed them to do that last year and they didn't do that. And now they've come back to the same district. So they haven't left to go to Tennessee. And now they're asking that we waive that same, we just basically, pardon my dog. I've all kinds of circus happening in the background. I understand that that's precedent.
I totally agree. I just feel like we treat people who come out of state better than people who are here, and that bothers me. But we do need teachers.
We do. Okay.
But remember, during the full meeting, feel free to voice your opinion and, talk to the board and see what they say.
Alrighty, it already got a second though, right? Okay.
Yeah, I went ahead and seconded. I'm just saying it because I totally agree with you, and I won't be there.
Yeah.
So if you want to have that discussion, because either we, in my opinion, need to just let the 6 hours go for everyone, or make it mandatory when they come in. But that's just my opinion.
So, and I will note with this one as well, with the kind of recent actions, we have been looking at that. So recency was originally created in a required rank 2 world. And so there's a differentiation. If the individual had rank 2 and came from out of state, then there was if they had 2 years of teaching experience within the last 10 years, they were exempt from recency. Which this individual clearly meets that exemption requirement, except he doesn't have rank 2. Well, now rank 2 is not required for those in-state either, and so recency may need to catch up with that. So, I think based on this discussion and additional board action, we can also look at that regulation to bring back so that we are making clear that now recency applies to those with a break in service. But again, we will work on that and bring that back to the board for further discussion.
And I think, Cassie, that context is really helpful and probably necessary to include in the bigger board conversation in a little bit.
Absolutely.
All righty, on to waiver F, which will also be presented by Mr. Davis.
And waiver F in regards to 16 KAR 8010 is a request to allow a Masters of Divinity for rank 1 for Mr. Robert Jason Strickland. It's located in items or pages 78 through 83. Mr. Strickland currently holds a rank 2 learning behavior disorders. And in addition to his Masters of Arts in Teaching, LBD that resulted in initial certification in May of 23. He's obtaining a teacher certification. He also completed Masters of Divinity in Biblical Languages from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas in 1995. Mr. Strickland has provided a rationale demonstrating his coursework in this degree impacts his work as a teacher, as well as counseling students through tragic events. He's requesting the EPSB approve this degree for rank 1 due to the applied relevance of in the social studies classroom or the EBD classroom.
And I will note for the board, you have seen Masters of Divinity from time to time. And those have typically been denied. I think the last one that was denied was in December. And I apologize, I do not have what subject that individual was teaching right offhand. Pull that really quickly though.
I can make a motion to deny the waiver.
Just cut to the chase.
I will second that.
There you go.
That's F, right? Waiver
Yes,
F.
that's F.
Yes.
Mr. Strickland.
Because I'm reporting out, so I'm just trying to keep record here. Yeah.
So everything but F, we made a yes to everyone but F.
Got it. Thanks.
With discussion on E, definitely. Yeah, and even as a social studies teacher, even biblical languages doesn't help. I was trying to help by looking into because language is a part of social studies, but biblical language, not much. So yeah, I can't help him. I was trying. All righty, is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, at this time, the waiver committee meeting is adjourned.